The stars looked different from this far out. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the research vessel New Horizon, watching the endless black space through the large window. His ship had been traveling for 3 months, collecting data about the outer planets of their solar system. It was supposed to be a routine mission. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," called Lisa Carter from her position at the navigation console. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing buttons. As she tried to make sense of what her instruments were telling her, Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "Energy readings unlike anything in our database. The signals are coming from near Jupiter's orbit, but they're not from any of our ships or stations." Lisa's voice carried a mix of excitement and worry. "The patterns are too organized to be natural, but too alien to be human." Paul Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station across the bridge. His weathered face showed concern as he studied his own readings. "Captain, whatever it is, it's big. The energy output is massive, much bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In his 15 years of space travel, he had never encountered anything like this. Earth had been searching for signs of alien life for centuries, but they had never found any proof. Something was out there, and it was close to home. "Can we get a visual?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes. The main screen flickered and then showed a grainy image of space near Jupiter. At first, Jake saw nothing unusual, and Lisa enhanced the image, and he gasped. A massive structure hung in space, easily 10 times larger than Earth's biggest space station. It had a smooth, curved surface that seemed to shimmer with its own light. The design was unlike anything humans had ever created. Where human ships were angular and functional, this craft looked almost organic, like it had grown rather than been built. "My God," whispered Dr. Sandra Kim, the mission's chief scientist. She had been quietly working at her station, but now she stared at the screen in amazement. "It's real? We're not alone." Jake knew he should contact Earth Command immediately. This was the most important discovery in human history. But before he could give the order, something happened that changed everything. The ship shook violently. Alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. Paul's hands flew over his controls as he tried to figure out what was happening. "Captain, we're caught in some kind of tractor beam," Paul shouted over the noise. "Our engines are useless." "Whatever that thing is, it's pulling us in." Jake grabbed the communications console. "Emergency signal to Earth Command. Tell them we've made contact with an alien vessel. Send our position and all our data." "Signal sent, Captain," Lisa replied, her voice tight with fear. The New Horizon moved helplessly toward the alien ship. As they got closer, Jake could see that the vessel was even larger than he had first thought. It could have held a small city inside its hull. Sections of the ship's surface began to glow brighter, and a large opening appeared in its side. "They're bringing us inside," Sandra said. Quietly, "This is really happening." The human ship was pulled into a vast hangar filled with soft blue light. The air outside looked breathable, though Jake didn't trust it. Shapes that were definitely not human. "All hands prepare for possible contact," Jake announced over the ship's internal communication system. "Stay calm, stay alert, and remember your training." But no training had prepared them for this moment. Jake looked at his crew. Of 12 people, they were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. If these aliens meant harm, there was little they could do to resist. A soft chiming sound came from outside the ship. Then a voice spoke, but not in any human language. The sounds were musical, almost like singing, but with an underlying structure. That suggested intelligence and purpose. "Captain," Sandra said, checking her instruments, "the atmosphere outside is safe for humans. The aliens seem to be trying to communicate." Jake made the decision that would change humanity's future. "Open the main airlock. Full environmental suits for everyone." "Lisa and Paul, you're with me." "Sandra, monitor everything and be ready to seal the ship if needed." The 3 humans stepped out of their ship and into the alien hangar. The gravity felt normal, and the air seemed fresh despite being artificial. The blue light came from panels in the walls and ceiling, giving everything a dreamlike quality. From the shadows stepped 3 beings that took Jake's breath away. They were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly.
Out there.
Faces were roughly humanoid, but longer and more delicate. Their eyes were large and silver, showing intelligence and what looked like curiosity rather than hostility. The center alien wore robes of deep blue material that flowed like water. It raised one long-fingered hand in what might have been a greeting, then spoke in that musical language. "I don't think they speak English," Paul said quietly. But then something amazing happened. The alien touched a device on its chest, and when it spoke again, the words came out in perfect English. "Greetings, beings of the Third World. I am Commander Vexhai of the Zilani Confederation science vessel Star Whisper. We detected your unusual energy signatures and wanted to make contact." Jake found his voice. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship New Horizon. This is Lisa Carter and Paul Rodriguez. We're explorers from the planet you call the Third World." Commander Vexhai's large eyes widened even further. "You are natives of the third planet? This is most remarkable. Our initial scans suggested that world was extremely hostile to life. The radiation levels, the violent weather patterns, the seismic activity, we classified it as uninhabitable. Earth can be dangerous," Jake admitted, "but it's our home. We've learned to survive there." The alien commander exchanged looks with its companions. They spoke rapidly in their own language, and Jake caught a tone of excitement and disbelief. "Forgive our surprise," Vexai said finally. "In all our travels across the galaxy, we have never encountered a species that evolved on such a harsh world. Most civilized planets are much more gentle places. Your world would kill most galactic citizens within hours." Lisa stepped forward. "How many worlds are out there? How many species?" "The Confederation includes over 200 worlds and 47 different species," Vexai replied. "But all of them developed on what you might call garden worlds, places with stable climates, peaceful ecosystems, and minimal natural dangers." Paul looked amazed. "And you think our world is unusual?" "Unique would be a better word," Vexai said. "We have a term for worlds like yours. We call them Deathworlds. We never expected to find intelligent life on one." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they learned that not only were they not alone, but they were apparently the only species crazy enough to evolve on a planet that would terrify most galactic civilizations. "We would very much like to learn more about your people," Vexai continued. "Your survival on such a world suggests capabilities that could be of great interest to our scientists. Would you be willing to accompany us to meet with our research team?" Jake looked at Lisa and Paul. This was the moment that would determine humanity's first steps into the larger galaxy. The decision felt impossibly huge, but there was really only one choice. "Commander Vexhai," Jake said formally, "on behalf of humanity, we accept your invitation. We're ready to learn about the galaxy." The alien's face seemed to brighten with what might have been a smile. "Excellent. But I must warn you, you may find our civilization quite different from what you expect. We are a peaceful people. Violence and conflict are almost unknown to us." As they walked deeper into the alien ship, Jake wondered what these peaceful beings would think when they learned more about humanity's history. Earth might be a death world, but its people had learned to be survivors. He had a feeling that was going to matter more than anyone yet realized. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and the diplomatic vessel Aurora had arrived from Earth carrying humanity's best minds. Dr. Amanda Foster stood in the main conference room of the Zilani ship, watching as her colleague Kevin Walsh worked with the alien translation devices. The room itself was a marvel of alien architecture, with walls that seemed to flow like water and furniture that adjusted itself to whoever sat in it. Amanda had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. Zilani were beautiful in an otherworldly way, with their pale blue skin and graceful movements.
Ow!
But what struck her most was how gentle they seemed.
Oh!
Every gesture was careful, every word spoken softly. "I believe we have achieved better communication protocols," Kevin announced, adjusting the small device attached to his collar. The linguist had been working nonstop to improve the translation system that allowed humans in Zalani to understand. Each other scholar Tisara, the lead Zalani researcher, nodded gracefully. Her silver eyes showed constant curiosity mixed with what Amanda recognized as concern. Excellent, friend Kevin. Now we may discuss more complex topics about your fascinating species. Commander Ryan Blake stood near the back of the room, his military posture a sharp contrast to the flowing movements of the aliens. Amanda had requested his presence because his security expertise might prove valuable. But she wondered if bringing a former Marine had been wise. The Zalani seemed nervous around him. Skalatisara, Amanda began. We're eager to learn about your confederation and how galactic society works. The alien settled into a chair that molded itself to her form. Of course, Dr. Foster. Our confederation began nearly 800 of your years ago when 5 worlds discovered each other through peaceful exploration. We found that all our species shared similar values of harmony, learning, and cooperation. She gestured, and the air above the table filled with holographic images of beautiful worlds. Amanda gasped at the sight. Each planet looked like a perfect garden with blue skies, gentle landscapes, and what appeared to be carefully tended forests and meadows. This is Aquinas Commander Vexhi's homeworld, Tisera explained as one image focused. The entire planet is covered by warm, shallow seas with floating cities. The weather is always mild, and the native creatures are peaceful plant-eaters. The next image showed a world of rolling green hills under a soft orange sun. This is my home, Verdania. We have no large predators, no extreme weather, and no natural disasters. Our greatest danger might be falling from a tree while gathering fruit. Kevin leaned forward with interest. How did your species develop intelligence without environmental pressures? We evolved through cooperation rather than competition, Tisera replied. When resources are abundant and threats are minimal, intelligence develops to better understand beauty, art, and the mysteries of existence. Amanda felt a growing unease. What about conflict between species? Surely there must be disagreements. Resource disputes. Territorial issues? The alien looked confused. Why would there be conflict? With our replication technology, any species can create whatever resources they need. Territory is vast. There are billions of habitable worlds. If disagreements arise, we discuss them until consensus is reached. Ryan spoke for the first time. His voice gravelly compared to the musical tones of the aliens. What happens if someone refuses to reach consensus? What if they take what they want by force? Tisara's large eyes widened with what looked like horror. Force? You mean violence? We have records of such things from our ancient past, but civilized beings do not resort to violence. It would be unthinkable. But surely you have police, military forces, some way to maintain order, Ryan pressed. We have peacekeepers who help resolve disputes through mediation, Tisara explained, but they carry no weapons. Violence is a sign of mental illness, and such individuals receive treatment and counseling. Amanda saw Ryan's jaw tighten. She knew what he was thinking. These people were completely defenseless. Scholar Tisara, in all your travels, have you never encountered hostile species? Hostile? The aliens seemed to struggle with the concept. We have met some species that preferred isolation, but none that wished harm to others. The galaxy is vast and resources unlimited. There is no rational reason for hostility. Kevin adjusted his translation device and tried a different approach. On Earth, our history includes many wars. Conflicts where groups of humans fought each other for territory, resources, or ideological differences. The reaction from Tisera was immediate and disturbing. Her pale blue skin seemed to grow even paler, and she gripped the arms of her chair. Wars? Multiple conflicts? How did your species survive such madness? We adapted, Amanda said carefully. Those who couldn't survive didn't pass on their genes. Those who could, did. But the psychological trauma, Tisara whispered. Do you function as a society after experiencing such horror? Ryan stepped forward, and Amanda noticed several Zilani in the room, tense up at his movement. Scholar, with respect, you're looking at this wrong. Conflict taught us to work together, to innovate, to never give up when things get tough. It made us stronger. Stronger. Disara repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Commander Vex High. Showed me recordings of your homeworld, the violent storms, the seismic activity, the predatory creatures. How can you call such suffering strength? Amanda realized. This was a critical moment in human-alien relations, because we learned that the universe doesn't care about our comfort or safety. We had to become tough enough to survive whatever it threw at us. Please forgive my questions, Tissera said, but I must understand. These wars you mentioned, they involved killing? The deliberate ending of life? The room fell silent. Amanda could see the other Zilani present looking increasingly distressed. Yes, she said quietly. Sometimes millions died in single conflicts. Several aliens made soft sounds of distress. Tissera covered her face with her long fingers. Millions? And your species continued to function? To build civilizations? We built better civilizations because of what we learned, Ryan said firmly. Every war taught us something. Every disaster made us more prepared for the next one. Kevin tried to help by changing the subject. Perhaps we could discuss Zilani technology, your ships, your replication systems. Tissera seemed grateful for the change. Yes, of course.
Oh.
Our technology focuses on creation rather than destruction. We can synthesize any material we need, manipulate energy in peaceful ways, and travel between stars without disturbing the natural order. She gestured again, and new holographic displays appeared. Amanda saw incredible cities that seemed to grow like plants, ships that moved through space like swimming creatures, and machines that created complex objects from pure energy. This is amazing, Amanda breathed. Your science is centuries ahead of ours, yet you've developed space travel despite your world's hostility, Tissera observed. That suggests an incredible drive to explore and expand. We've always been explorers, Kevin agreed. When Earth became too small for us, we reached for the stars. Ryan crossed his arms. Scholar, I have to ask, what would your people do if they encountered a truly hostile species? One that wanted to take your worlds by force? Question clearly disturbed Tissera deeply. Such a thing is impossible. No rational species would choose violence over cooperation. But if it happened, Ryan insisted, hypothetically we would. We would try to understand their needs and find a peaceful solution, Tissera said uncertainly. We would offer them resources, territory, whatever they required. And if they just wanted to destroy you, they gained pleasure from causing pain? Tissera stood abruptly, her graceful composure cracking. Please, Commander Blake, such thoughts are too horrible to contemplate. In 800 years of Confederation history, no such species has ever existed. Amanda watched the exchange with growing concern. The Zilani were clearly advanced, peaceful, and well-intentioned. They were also completely unprepared for the kind of dangers that humans considered normal. Scholar Tissera, Amanda said gently. Perhaps we should demonstrate some human capabilities. Not weapons or violence, but survival skills. Things that might be useful in emergencies. So that would be educational, Tissera agreed, seeming relieved to move away from talk of hypothetical conflicts. Ryan nodded to Amanda. I could show basic self-defense techniques, emergency medical procedures, survival tactics for hostile environments. Self-defense? Tissera asked. Ways to protect yourself if someone tries to hurt you, Kevin explained. The alien looked genuinely puzzled. But why would anyone try to hurt me? The question hung in the air like a challenge, Amanda realized. That this cultural exchange was revealing something profound about both species. Humans were survivors from a world that demanded strength and adaptability. The Zilani were gentle beings from a galaxy that had never tested them. She wondered what would happen when that peaceful galaxy met something it couldn't negotiate with. The thought sent a chill down her spine, though she couldn't say why. Perhaps Amanda suggested we should start with something simple, basic first aid, maybe some wilderness survival techniques. As the aliens agreed enthusiastically, Amanda caught Ryan's eye. The peaceful meeting between humans and Zilani was interrupted by a sound that made every alien in the room freeze with terror. A deep, urgent tone echoed through the ship's corridors, followed by rapid announcements in the musical Zilani language. Commander. Vexhai burst into the conference room, his usual calm composure replaced by obvious panic. His pale blue skin had turned almost white, and his large silver eyes were wide with fear. "Forgive the intrusion," he said quickly to the humans, "but we have detected something impossible on our long-range sensors. Multiple large vessels approaching our territory at high speed." Dr. Amanda Foster stood up from her chair. "What kind of vessels?" Scholar Tissera was already working at a portable device, her graceful fingers shaking as she brought up holographic displays. "Ships unlike any in our Confederation database. The energy signatures suggest massive size and unknown technology." Ryan Blake moved to the display, his military training taking over. "How many ships? What's their heading?" 17 vessels, each larger than our biggest science ships," Vexai replied. "They're heading directly for the Verdania system, Scholar Tissera's homeworld." The scholar made a soft sound of distress. "My people, they must be warned. But what could these strangers want? Perhaps they need assistance, or wish to trade." Ryan studied the sensor data with growing alarm. The approaching ships moved in perfect formation, their paths calculated for maximum efficiency. This wasn't the behavior of peaceful explorers or traders. "How long until they reach Verdania?" "At their current speed, approximately 6 of your hours." Vexai answered. Amanda saw the fear in the alien's eyes and felt her own anxiety rising. "Have you tried to communicate with them?" "We have sent standard greeting messages on all known frequencies," Tissera said. "They do not respond. We have offered assistance, resources, safe passage through our territory. Nothing." Kevin Walsh, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "In human experience, when unknown forces approach your territory without responding to communication, it usually means trouble." The Zilani in the room exchanged worried glances. Vexai spoke quietly with several of his crew members in their own language before turning back to the humans. "We have contacted the Confederation Council," he announced. "All available ships are being redirected to Verdania to welcome these visitors." Ryan felt his blood run cold. "Commander, with respect, sending unarmed science ships to meet an unknown force might not be wise." "Unarmed?" Vexhai looked confused. "All our ships are unarmed. We are scientists and explorers, not warriors." The weight of that statement hit Amanda like a physical blow. "You mean the entire Zilani Confederation has no military? No weapons? No defense forces? Why would we need such things?" Tissera asked. "For 800 years we have never encountered hostility. All differences are resolved through discussion and cooperation." Amanda looked at Ryan, seeing her own growing horror reflected in his eyes. These gentle, advanced people were completely defenseless against whatever was coming toward them. The holographic display suddenly changed, showing new data from the Confederation's sensor network. Ryan studied the information with the trained eye of a soldier and didn't like what he saw. "These ships are moving in attack formation," he said grimly. "See how they're positioned? That's a classic assault pattern designed to overwhelm defenders from multiple angles." "Attack formation," Vexhai repeated. "Surely you're mistaken. No civilized species would." His words were cut off as new data flooded the display. The unknown ships had reached the outer edge of the Verdania system and were accelerating toward the planet. More disturbing, they had begun targeting the small Zilani vessels that had moved to greet them. The first Zilani ship simply vanished from the sensors. One moment it was transmitting peaceful greetings, the next it was gone, and another disappeared, and another. Tissera made a sound of pure anguish. "They're destroying our ships, our people, ... They don't even have shields raised. They're trying to communicate even as they're being killed." The reality of the situation crashed over the aliens like a wave. For the first time in their civilization's history, they were facing something that wanted to hurt them. Something that saw their peaceful overtures not as friendship, but as weakness to be exploited. "Must contact Earth immediately," Amanda told Ryan. "Get Admiral Hayes and her task force out here as fast as possible." Ryan was already moving toward the communication station. Admiral Hayes won't get here in time to save Verdania. It'll take days for our ships to reach this system. More Zilani vessels vanished from the sensors. The approaching fleet, now clearly revealed as hostile, began bombing Verdania's major cities. The peaceful planet had no defenses, no way to fight back against the assault. "We have to do something," Amanda said desperately. "Can't just watch an entire world be destroyed." Vexai was receiving reports from across the Confederation, his face growing paler with each message. 3 colony worlds have gone silent. Our science stations are reporting massive energy weapons being used against civilian populations. This is ... This is genocide. Scholar Tessera collapsed into her chair, overwhelmed by the horror unfolding before them. Who are they? What do they want? Ryan pulled up what little data they had on the attacking ships. Based on their behavior and technology, I'd guess they're some kind of harvester species. They strip worlds clean and move on to the next target. Why? Tessera whispered. We offered them everything they could need, because they don't want to trade or negotiate, Ryan explained harshly. They want to take what you have and kill anyone who might resist. The concept was so alien to the Zilani that several of them seemed unable to process it. Their entire worldview was built on the assumption that all intelligent life was fundamentally peaceful and reasonable. Amanda made a decision that would change everything. Commander Vexai, we need to contact the human fleet immediately. Admiral. Karen Hayes commands a task force that includes real warships, vessels designed for combat. Warships? Vexai asked in shock. Your people build ships specifically for war? We build them to protect ourselves from things like this, Ryan said, gesturing at the display showing Verdania's destruction. The universe is more dangerous than you realized. As if to prove his point, new sensor contacts appeared on the display. The Harvester fleet was splitting up, sending smaller groups toward other Confederation worlds. They weren't just attacking Verdania. They were beginning a systematic conquest of the entire Zilani territory. They're going to destroy everything, Tessera said in a broken voice. 800 years of civilization gone. Amanda grabbed the communication system and began transmitting an emergency signal toward Earth. Earth Command, this is Dr. Marr. Amanda Foster, aboard the Zilani vessel Star Whisper. We have a code red situation. Hostile alien fleet attacking peaceful Confederation. Request immediate military intervention. While they waited for a response, Ryan studied the tactical situation. The Harvester fleet was methodical and efficient, clearly experienced in this kind of operation, but they were also overconfident, spreading their forces thin as they attacked multiple targets simultaneously. There might be a way to slow them down, he said thoughtfully. But it would require the Zilani to do things they've never done before. What do you mean? Vexai asked. You'd have to fight back. Use your ships as weapons, even if they weren't designed for it. Make them pay for every world they take. The suggestion horrified the aliens. Their entire culture was built on peaceful cooperation. The idea of deliberately causing harm to other beings went against everything they believed, but as they watched another Confederation world go silent on their sensors, something changed in the aliens' demeanor. Tessera's grief began to transform into something harder, more determined. Tell us what to do, she said quietly. We cannot let our people die. Without trying to save them, Amanda felt a chill as she realized what was happening. These gentle, peaceful beings were about to learn lessons that humanity had been forced to master over. Millennia of warfare and survival. They were about to discover what it meant to fight for their lives. The response from Earth Command crackled. Through the communication system, Admiral Karen Hayes' voice was crisp and professional, despite the vast distance. Dr. Foster, this is Admiral Hayes. We're receiving your signal and dispatching the task force immediately. 8 to 72 hours. Hold your position and gather all possible intelligence on the hostile force. 72 hours. Amanda looked at the display, showing the systematic destruction of the Confederation worlds. In 72 hours, there might be nothing left to save, unless the Zilani learned very quickly how to become something they had never been before, warriors. Admiral Karen Hayes stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Valiant, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Her task force had arrived at the edge of Zalani space just as another Confederation world fell silent. 12 human warships. Against 17 alien harvesters, not great odds, but better than what the peaceful aliens had been facing. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Star Whisper," reported Captain Tony Miller from his fighter squadron command post. "Dr. Foster and the diplomatic team are still alive, but the Zalani are in full retreat." Karen studied the battle data streaming across her screens. The harvester ships were massive, easily twice the size of her largest vessels. But they moved like predators who had never encountered real resistance. Their formations were sloppy, their positioning overconfident. "Captain Parker, bring the Ranger and her Marines into position behind that asteroid field," she ordered. "Colonel Thompson, I want your assault teams ready for boarding operations." Steve Parker acknowledged from the bridge of the assault carrier Ranger. His ship carried 300 of Earth's best Marines, soldiers trained for the kind of brutal, close-quarters combat that these harvesters had probably never experienced. The first engagement came when the harvesters detected the human fleet. 3 of their ships broke off from bombarding a Zalani colony and moved to intercept. Karen watched with professional interest as they approached in a straight line. No evasive maneuvers, no tactical creativity. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," she announced across the fleet communication channel. "Remember, these things have been picking on defenseless civilians for who knows how long. Let's show them what happens when they mess with someone who can fight back." Tony Miller led the first wave of fighters against the approaching harvesters. His squadron of 12 small craft dove toward the massive enemy ships like angry wasps attacking elephants. The harvesters opened fire with energy weapons that could have vaporized a Zalani vessel instantly. But human fighters were built for war. They twisted and rolled through the deadly fire, their pilots using every trick learned from centuries of aerial combat. Tony's ship shook as an energy blast passed close enough to overload his shields, but he kept flying. "This is Falcon Leader," Tony called over the radio. "Their weapons are powerful but slow to track. They're not used to fighting fast targets." The fighters struck back with missiles and energy cannons, their weapons small but precisely aimed. They targeted the harvesters' weapon systems and engines, trying to cripple rather than destroy the massive ships. One harvester began listing to port as its engines failed. Another lost several of its main guns to concentrated fighter attack. But the real shock came when the third harvester tried to ram Tony's squadron, clearly expecting the small craft to flee. Instead, Tony led his fighters straight at the approaching giant. At the last second, his squadron split apart like a breaking wave, passing on either side of the harvester while pouring fire into its hull. The alien ship, committed to its ramming attack, crashed into the asteroid field behind them. "Target destroyed," Tony reported, his voice calm despite having just performed one of the most dangerous maneuvers in space combat. These guys definitely aren't used to opponents who don't run away. Remaining harvesters retreated toward their main fleet, but the damage was done. The first time since their campaign began, they had been hurt by their prey. Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. "All ships advance. Let's take this fight to them." The main battle began when the human task force encountered the harvester fleet in orbit around a burning Zalani world. Aliens had been systematically destroying the planets, cities when the human ships appeared on their sensors. The harvesters reacted with surprise and then rage. They had never encountered resistance like this. Their formations wheeled to face the human fleet, bringing massive weapons to bear. But Karen Hayes had not become an admiral by fighting fair. As the harvesters focused on her main fleet, Colonel Amy Thompson's Marines were already moving into position aboard captured Zalani vessels that the enemy had ignored. "Boarding teams are go," Thompson reported from the modified transport ship that was approaching the harvester flagship. "The Zalani volunteers did good work getting us close." The Marines hit the harvester ship like a hammer blow. Using cutting tools and explosives, they burned through the hull and poured into the alien vessel's corridors. What they found inside shocked even these battle-hardened soldiers. The harvesters were huge insectoid creatures, each one the size of a small vehicle. Their natural armor could probably stop small arms fire, and their clawed limbs looked capable of tearing a human apart. But they had one critical weakness. They had never fought an enemy that came aboard their ships. Sergeant Chris Johnson led his squad through the twisting passages of the alien vessel, moving with the practiced efficiency of soldiers who knew their business. When they encountered their first group of harvesters, the aliens tried to overwhelm them with size and strength. They learned quickly that humans had other advantages. "Grenades out," Chris shouted, and his squad scattered as explosive. Charges filled the corridor with deadly fragments. The harvesters' natural armor protected them from some damage, but human weapons were designed to kill things that didn't want to die. The aliens fell back in confusion. These small creatures were using tactics and weapons they had never encountered. Every passage became a battleground, every room a potential ambush site. Meanwhile, space battle raged around the boarding action. Captain Steve Parker brought the Ranger in close to the Harvester flagship. Using his ship's guns to keep other alien vessels from interfering with the marine assault, "Admiral, we're taking heavy fire," Steve reported as his ship shook from multiple hits, but the Marines are making progress inside the target. Karen watched the tactical display as red icons representing human forces moved deeper into the Harvester ship. Each icon represented dozens of Marines fighting and dying in the alien corridors. But they were winning. The breakthrough came when Major Don Cooper's team reached the Harvester Command Center. The aliens inside were clearly the ship's officers, larger and more heavily armored than the common soldiers. But they had made a critical mistake. They had never learned to fight defensively. "Breach and clear," Don shouted, and his Marines stormed into the command center with weapons blazing. The Harvester officers tried to fight back with their natural weapons, but human firearms cut them down before they could close to melee range. With their command structure destroyed, the Harvester flagship began to drift helplessly. Other alien ships moved to assist, but they found themselves facing Lieutenant Susan Davis and her defensive teams, who had set up firing positions throughout the captured vessel. "This is Davis," Susan reported over the radio. "We own this ship. Any Harvester that wants it back can come and take it." The psychological impact on the Harvester fleet was immediate and devastating. These creatures had built their entire military doctrine around overwhelming weaker opponents. They had never faced an enemy that fought back effectively, much less one that could capture their most powerful vessels. For the first time in their history, the Harvesters began to retreat. But Admiral Hayes wasn't finished with them. "All ships, pursue and engage. Don't let any of them escape to regroup." The running battle that followed became legendary in both human and Zilani records. Human fighters harassed the fleeing Harvesters, while the main fleet moved to cut off their escape routes. The aliens, demoralized and confused, made tactical errors that experienced human commanders exploited ruthlessly. One by one, the Harvester ships were destroyed or disabled. The few that managed to escape did so as broken, terrified remnants of what had once been an unstoppable force. When the last Harvester ship jumped away into hyperspace, Karen Hayes stood on her bridge and surveyed the aftermath. 12 human ships had defeated 17 alien vessels, rescued thousands of Zilani civilians, and ended a threat that had terrorized this part of the galaxy. Admiral reported her communication officer, "We're receiving messages from across the Zilani Confederation. They're calling us saviors, liberators, heroes." Karen nodded, but her expression remained serious. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them we've made contact with a galactic civilization, and they're going to need our protection." She looked out at the stars, knowing that this victory was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were probably other threats out there. But now the peaceful species had something they'd never had before: allies who knew how to fight. Age of human expansion into galactic society had begun, and it would be written in the language that humans understood best: the language of strength, courage, and the willingness to stand against the darkness. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Harvester War ended, Ambassador Helen Wright stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Zilani Confederation capital. The building itself showed how much had changed since humanity's arrival. What had once been a peaceful meeting, a place for scholars and diplomats, now included security stations, defensive barriers, and monitoring systems that would have been unthinkable in the old Confederation. The changes went deeper than architecture. Helen watched as Zilani representatives discussed military budgets, defense treaties, and patrol schedules, with the same careful attention they had once given to art exhibitions and scientific conferences. The gentle aliens were learning to think like soldiers, and it showed in every conversation. Ambassador Wright, Scholar Tessara, approached with her usual graceful movements. Though Helen noticed the small communication device attached to her arm that would summon security at a moment's notice, the council is ready to begin the ceremony. Helen nodded, adjusting the formal diplomatic uniform that marked her as Earth's first official representative to galactic civilization. How are the new recruits adjusting to the training program? Better than we expected, Tessara admitted. Commander Blake's methods are intense but effective. Our people are learning concepts we never thought we would need. Through the tall windows, Helen could see the training grounds where Ryan Blake worked with groups of young Zilani volunteers. The former Marine had adapted human military training for alien physiology and psychology, creating something entirely new. Watching graceful, peaceful beings learn hand-to-hand combat and weapons handling was still strange, but necessary. The main hall filled with representatives from 47 different species across 200 worlds. All of them had come to witness something unprecedented in galactic history: the signing of the first true mutual defense treaty the Confederation had ever created. Dr. Richard Stone entered the hall with a group of human and Zilani scientists, their arms full of data tablets and project reports. The joint research teams had been working around the clock to develop new technologies that combined human military innovation with alien scientific advancement. Helen Richard called out as he approached, "You should see what we've accomplished. The new shield systems are 50% more effective than anything either species had alone, and the weapons platforms. Top." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "I never thought I'd be excited about building better ways to destroy things." "Galaxy is different now," Helen reminded him. "We all have to adapt." She was right, and everyone in the room knew it. The Harvester attack had shattered the Confederation's peaceful worldview forever. Other species across the galaxy had heard about the war and were asking difficult questions. If one hostile force could exist undetected for so long, what other threats might be out there? Commander Vexhai joined their conversation, his pale blue skin marked with new scars from the battle to retake his homeworld. The deep space sensor networks are reporting unusual activity in the Outer Rim territories, ships moving in patterns that suggest organized fleets. Helen felt the familiar chill that came with such reports. In the months since the Harvester defeat, similar signs had appeared across multiple sectors. The galaxy was waking up to the reality that peace was not the natural state of the universe. "What's the status of the Joint Patrol Program?" she asked. "Captain Adams launched yesterday with the first mixed human-Zilani crew," Vexhai reported. "The Harmony is our prototype for future cooperation. If it works, we plan to build 50 more ships like it." The ceremony began with traditional Zilani music, but Helen noticed how the gentle melodies now included stronger, more martial themes. Even their art was changing to reflect their new reality. Commander Ryan Blake entered the hall in his dress uniform, flanked by Zilani officers who moved. With the confident bearing of trained soldiers, the transformation was remarkable. Beings who had never conceived of violence were now competent military leaders. "The training program has exceeded all expectations," Ryan reported to Helen. "We've established military academies on 12 worlds, with more planned. The Zilani learn fast when they put their minds to it." Scholar Tessara took the podium to address the assembly. Her voice still carried the musical quality of her species. "But there was steel underneath now that hadn't been there before, fellow citizens of the Confederation," she began. 6 months ago, we discovered that our peaceful galaxy contained threats we had never imagined. We learned that good intentions and advanced technology were not enough to protect those we love." The hall fell silent as she continued. "We also learned that we were not alone in our struggle. The humans of Earth showed us that survival is possible, even against overwhelming odds. They taught us that sometimes peace must be defended with Strength. Helen watched the faces in the audience as Tissera spoke. There was sadness there for the innocence they had lost, but also determination that surprised her. These beings had been forced to grow up quickly, and they were rising to the challenge. Today, we formalize our alliance with humanity and commit ourselves to the defense of all peaceful species in this galaxy. We will no longer be prey for those who see kindness as weakness. The signing ceremony was simple, but profound. Representatives from every Confederation world placed their marks on the treaty, followed by human officials. When Helen added her signature as Earth's ambassador, she felt the weight of history. Dr. Richard Stone presented the joint research findings to the Assembly. Our combined efforts have produced defensive technologies that neither species could have developed alone. We're sharing everything: human military expertise and Confederation scientific knowledge. The presentations continued throughout the day. Captain Lucy Adams appeared via holographic transmission from the Harmony, reporting on her ship's first patrol mission in previously unexplored territory. We've made contact with 3 new species in the past week, Lucy reported. 2 were peaceful traders who welcomed Confederation membership. The third... her expression grew serious. The third was a raiding fleet targeting isolated colonies. They retreated when they realized we were armed and prepared to fight. The message was clear. Word was spreading through the galaxy that the peaceful Confederation was peaceful no longer. They had allies now who understood warfare, and they were learning to fight for themselves as the ceremony concluded. Helen found herself standing with Commander Vexai and Scholar Tissera on the observation deck. Below them, mixed human and Zilani crews worked together on ships that looked like nothing either species had built before. "Do you ever regret what we've become?" Tissera asked quietly. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of our old life."
Helen
considered the question carefully. Change is always difficult, but would you rather go back to being helpless victims? No, Tissera said firmly. Never again. Vexai pointed to a formation of new patrol ships launching from the spaceport. Our children will grow up in a galaxy where they know how to defend themselves. That's worth any price. The communication alert interrupted their conversation. Adams was reporting from the outer rim, her voice tense with urgency. "Command, we've detected a massive fleet moving toward Confederation space. Configuration unknown, but they're using formation patterns similar to the Harvesters. Estimated arrival time, 72 hours. Helen felt her blood run cold, but she wasn't surprised. The galaxy was vast, and there were probably many threats still unknown to them. "Send word to Admiral Hayes," Helen ordered. Full mobilization of all Allied forces. As alarms began sounding across the capital, Helen watched human and Zilani. Personnel rushed to their stations with practiced efficiency. The sight filled her with pride and confidence. 6 months ago, people would have tried to negotiate with whatever was coming. They would have offered resources and cooperation, hoping that goodwill would be enough. Now they were preparing for war. "I think we can handle another threat like the Harvesters?" Vexa asked. Helen smiled grimly as she watched the combined fleet begin forming up in space above them. Human battleships took position alongside Confederation vessels equipped with new weapons and shields. Fighter squadrons launched with mixed crews who had trained together for months. "This time, they're going to discover something the Harvesters never lived to report," she said. "The galaxy has Deathworlders now, and we've taught our friends how to fight." The unknown fleet was still coming, but Helen felt no fear. The peaceful age was over, but something better had taken its place. The galaxy now had protectors who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be ready for war. In the distance, more ships launched to join the defensive fleet. Human vessels and Confederation ships flying side by side, ready to face whatever came out of the darkness between the stars. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be defenseless again.